Introduce our next speaker, who I had the chance first to get to know in Barcelona not too long ago, where he was a keynote speaker for a conference on peacekeeping in the Mediterranean, which was a fascinating conference. We hosted actually in Barcelona, where we had Israelis, Palestinians, the Bosnians, Americans, Africans, very, very international, really also from the entire region, Tunisians, Egyptians. So it was quite an interesting time in Barcelona to address also in particular how cultural diplomacy can actually assist in the process of peacekeeping in the Mediterranean region. So the gentleman, of course, that I'm about to introduce is the Honorable Selmo Cikotic, Defense Minister of Bosnia-Herzegovina. Mr. Cikotic was born in 1964 as a politician of Bosnia-Herzegovina, a member of the Party of the Democratic Action, and a former army officer. He is currently the Minister of Defense, a post he was appointed to in April 2007. Mr. Cikotic served as a military attaché in the Embassy of Bosnia-Herzegovina to the United States in Washington, D.C. from December 1994 until 1997. As a brigadier general, he was enrolled in the U.S. Army's Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth in June 1997. He participated as well in the Dayton negotiations as a military representative. He also served as commander of the 1st Corps of the Federation Army of Bosnia-Herzegovina from 2001 until 2004. He initially did his studies. He got a Master of Science in February 2004 in Security and Defense. He got his PhD degree in July 2008 in Security Perspectives of Bosnia and Herzegovina. In addition to his service as Minister of Defense, he also teaches at the University of Sarajevo and at the American University, politics and strategies of national policy, leadership, etc. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a very, very warm welcome for the Honorable Mr. Selmo Cikotic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege and pleasure to have the opportunity to discuss a so dynamic and potentially so powerful topic of cultural diplomacy within the context of the fast-changing and very dynamic world that we live in today. I will discuss the regional and national defense policies, the role and the use of cultural diplomacy as an integral component of successful policies. I will cover some of the aspects of the world that we live in today that are globally relevant. I will also cover some of the aspects of the part of the world that I come from and try to leave more time for an interaction and exchange, even though I wouldn't mind if you stop me even during my presentation and make some comments or ask questions. Globalization has brought a number of very positive aspects, primarily the free flow of people, ideas, goods, values, technologies, information, and so on. At the same time, it has made many of the security challenges and threats of modern world global as well. So we have got the global terrorism, organized crime, corruption, a number of proliferations of weapons of mass destruction, primarily illegal trafficking of people, drugs, weapons, illegal migrations. We have got a number of environmental threats. We've got the whole set of economic and financial crises that are gaining the strength and momentum. We have got the threats presented by failing states and undemocratic regimes across the world. We have got the whole set of environmental threats and climate changes. We have got some man-made disasters, we have got natural disasters, and I would like to point out that cyber threats that are gaining the scope and importance are becoming a new kind of threat that will probably be incorporated in every other threat individually. And talking to you as young leaders, like you to know that 2010 marked the year where the whole number of devices connected to the network surpassed the overall number of people on the globe. That was a significant change to keep in mind. This has created interdependence as the major feature of the era we are part of. No country, regardless of its size and strength, could provide its own security on its own. So interdependence has become the major feature of international relations. There is another very relevant aspect of the time we are part of. It's the overall speed of change. The speed of change is constantly growing up. This acceleration does not show any sign of slowing down, and this acceleration does not have a linear but exponential function or characteristics. These all circumstances are creating the new cultures. Cultures in terms of politics, economy, military, technology, and so on. Political culture, if I am to illustrate it, has changed in terms or the context of cultural diplomacy, that strength of the country is no longer measured by the strength of economy or the size of territory or the size of population. The country's strength is more and more measured by the level of integration of certain country into the international infrastructure, structure, and the quality and number of links it has got bilaterally or multilaterally with powerful friends and allies at the international arena. On the military side, the defense of certain country is less and less measured by number of tanks, troops, aircraft, submarines, and so on. It's more and more measured by number of economy, by the size and strength of the economy. Whereas the economy is very much changing its pattern, and the analysts and insiders of the economic studies are suggesting that we are approaching a new global economic order with a number of major features of global economy being very much changed. All these technological changes has created a new realm within which the globe and the world is not only a geographic entity, it has become a networked and a virtual entity, which is also creating a completely new infrastructure for all kinds of exchange, including cultural diplomacy potentials that are, I guess, very relevant and very important for the gathering we are part of today. The Western Balkans is part of the world that is probably as diversified and as dynamic as any other in the world. Historically, geographically, culturally, in all other senses, it represents a part of the world that links Europe with Asia, Mediterranean with the heartland of Europe, Adriatic region with Black Sea region. And given the fact that globalization is more and more getting an Asian phase, or some other analysts are suggesting that we are living century of Pacific with an increased role of Indian Ocean, we might say that the Balkans could present not only a periphery or burden to Europe, but also a chance for Europe. It could be a good interface of Europe with Asia, making advantages of its specific geopolitical, geoeconomic, and geocultural position. Historically, nowadays, and very much likely in the time to come. I guess it's fair to say that that part of the world has sustained and experienced the most recent historic, dynamic, and tragic wars. And I believe it is not only our right, but also our duty to pass those experiences to others and let nobody else repeating similar experience. And if I have to summarize our messages, then I could easily say it's always much better to promote cooperation rather than confrontation. It's better to promote inclusion rather than exclusion. It's better to think in terms of integration rather than in terms of fragmentation. Easier said than done, I do accept, but with all wars that we have waged, I guess we all have decided that nobody had a clear-cut victory. It was the matter who lost more or less. And we believe that with the constructive, forthcoming, cultural and other constructive and productive communication and diplomatic instruments, we could achieve more with far less cost and negative consequences. This is the time that is characterized by a number of changes, and talking to you as young leaders, I would say that leadership is getting more complex. I'm not saying that leadership is changing. The essence of leadership is it's in its capacity and quality to be ahead of time. And there were some people who, along the Arab Spring, suggested that internet, Facebook, Twitter, Blogger, and many other communication devices were providing the new environment within which leadership didn't matter any longer. Being a student of leadership, I could tell you that the more complex this environment is, the more sophisticated leadership is required. If you admit that leadership is no longer important, that would be like admitting that when the gun and powder were invented, the soldiers were not, or the military commanders were not relevant any longer. Quite opposite. The role of command and military strategy became much more important and much more demanding. And leadership of today's world should recognize those prevailing trends, should recognize the inevitability of certain processes, of certain changes. The history does teach us that we sometimes do not show ourselves as good pupils, so we should learn that some cycles do repeat themselves, but many aspects of the time which is becoming more complex, more dynamic, are creating some new patterns, and I guess it is especially relevant for us Europeans. And if I'm to illustrate this statement, I would just say that at the end of World War II, Europe participated in the world GDP with more than 50%, and it does today with less than 25%. At the end of World War II, we Europeans made the whole 1/4 of the world population, meaning 25% of the world population. Today, we make less than 10%, and especially if we take into account that our average age is twice bigger than the average age of the rest of the world, and that the trends of the demographic prevailing trends in Europe are downgoing, whereas the rest of the world is upwarding, it makes the whole position of ours even more complex and grave. And I'm just saying that we need inclusive cultural diplomacy, our capacity to communicate, which we have proven to be present many times in history. And I believe that the theory of clash of civilizations or the dilemma, whether we speak about clash or dialogue between civilizations, is a quasi-dilemma. I believe the only real dilemma we have got to sincerely answer to is whether we are part of struggle for civilization or not. Because civilization by itself does not include clashes. Civilization by its nature promotes constructive, positive, and peaceful instruments of resolving all disputes, differences, and different interests. And just to contribute to the inspiring talks of this morning, I would like to refer to the fact that it is very difficult to learn how to speak, but it's even more difficult to learn how to listen to. For cultural diplomacy, this is extremely relevant. If we want to learn how to listen to, then we have got to develop an appreciation and an understanding not only for the words themselves, but to the causes and roots and the reasons why is someone talking about something and what are the final effects of his intention by presenting certain wordings. And just to confirm it by some kind of obvious facts, in our part of the world there is a saying that God has granted us with one mouth to talk and with 2 ears to listen, and that we should respect this proportion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for an excellent lecture, and I think especially coming from you as Minister of Defense, that really matters even more. So thank you so much for your inspiration. Please, comments, questions, reactions? Who would like to go first?